What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue with our 2025 predictions for the upcoming 2025 college football season. Up next is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska coming off a pretty solid year in 2024, coming off a 7-6 season in Matt Rule's second year. So yeah, Nebraska making it to a bowl game. That was really the big accomplishment there that Nebraska had last year, and of course winning the bowl game as well. So yeah, Nebraska coming off a pretty solid year in 2024. Looking at 2025, my thoughts on this team before we get into the predictions. You know, both sides of the football, Nebraska I think is going to have a chance to be pretty decent this year, and you look at their schedule coming up here in just a moment. It really does give Nebraska a chance to be probably a dark horse team in the Big Ten this year in 2025. I mean, offensively, you've got Dylan Raiola back at quarterback. We saw how good of a quarterback he was in the first half of the year, but then we saw him kind of struggle a little bit late and kind of make those freshman mistakes, but I think he has a chance to improve his numbers in 2025, and you never know. He might be one of the best quarterbacks in the country and could be one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. So here's the schedule again for Nebraska. It sets up pretty well for them. Again, this team last year, they were 7-6 in 2024. So let's go game by game, and I'll give you my official prediction for Nebraska for 2025. They will open things up on a Thursday night, August the 28th. Neutral site game against Cincinnati, the Bearcats out of the Big 12. This game will be in Kansas City. Cincinnati is a team that everybody's kind of talking about being a lot better this year. They could be possibly a team that can make it to a bowl game. Yeah, I do like Cincinnati's roster a lot. I think they'll be improved, but you look at these two rosters here in this game, I just look at the talent advantage. It does favor Nebraska here. Cincinnati, I think, can keep up with Nebraska just a little bit here and maybe in this game for quite a while in the first half, but you never know. It's a weeknight game, week 1, August the 28th on a neutral field. We've seen, pretty much, some teams that don't really have a home field advantage in these neutral site games. I feel like there will be more Nebraska fans here, but maybe it's like 60% capacity for Nebraska, and then there'll be about like 40% fans of Cincinnati, but I think it'll be pretty even 50-50, but the game's not 50-50 in my opinion. I think, you just look at these two teams. I think Nebraska is a slightly better team than Cincinnati is, so with that being said, I think it is a close game, maybe in the first half, competitive, but I think second half, that's where Nebraska is going to pull away. So I think the Cornhuskers do beat Cincinnati here in Kansas City to open up the season on Thursday night, August the 28th in week 1. And I got them starting off 1-0. And then they play Akron and HCU, group of 5 team, and then an FCS team the next week. I think they win those two games pretty easily as well. So I got Nebraska starting off 3-0, going into conference play the rest of the time here in the final stretch of the season, or I should say the rest of the season, because they open up Big Ten play against Michigan at home on September the 20th. Michigan is a team that's getting a lot of hype. We know that they could be a top 25 team this year, but if you go back and watch my Michigan video, I did say that Nebraska, I think, would pull off a huge upset here because Michigan's coach is going to be suspended for this game, and that really kind of could cost Michigan in this game. And plus, you got a freshman quarterback in Bryce Underwood that will take over this year for 2025. We don't really know how good of a quarterback he's going to be, but still, I think he'll be pretty good for them. He's going to get better as the season goes along, but I do trust Dylan Raiola a lot more than Bryce Underwood as of right now, and also playing at home, that's going to get Nebraska really fired up for this game. So yeah, I think Nebraska actually pulls off an upset here, again, because of Michigan's coach being suspended. That's going to really cost them, and I know Michigan's won some games in the past under Jim Harbaugh where he was suspended, but I think this is kind of different story. So I think Nebraska does pull off the upset. They beat Michigan here at home on September 20th, and I got this team improving to 4-0. And then after that, it's a bye week before playing Michigan State on October the 4th. Pretty good spot for a bye week for Nebraska, especially after playing maybe a physical, low-scoring defensive game against Michigan. They almost kind of, they were going to be probably beat up, especially if they didn't have a bye week before playing this game. But still, that's a good spot for a bye week. Michigan State is a team that is trying to improve a little bit this year, possibly to make it to a bowl game in 2025 with their second-year head coach. This team is just trying to get back on the right track as a program, but I think Nebraska coming out of the bye week, they definitely are the better team. I think they'll take care of business here against Michigan State. They win this one by at least double digits. So I got Nebraska improving to 5-0 with that win over Michigan State on October the 4th. And then they go on the road to play for the first time in the Big Ten. And this is also their first road game of the season after one neutral site game and then also 4 home games in a row. They'll play Maryland, though, first on the road on October the 11th. This is a Maryland team that has just got so many question marks on both sides of the football. There's not really a lot of talent there for Maryland like there used to be. They just don't have a lot of playmakers as much as they used to be as well, and they don't have talent. So yeah, I'm not really this high on Maryland this year for 2025, and for that reason, even though it's on the road, maybe Nebraska will start off slow because it's their first road game, but Nebraska is the better team. I do expect them to take care of business, so I got them winning this one and improving to 6-0. After that, it's another road game against Minnesota on October 18th. So they got back-to-back road games with Maryland and Minnesota. Minnesota's a team that's going to slow the game down. They're going to want to run the football here. Minnesota's known for that. You know, obviously under PJ Fleck, they like to run the football against like teams that are really good on the offensive side of the football, and they just want to waste the clock down and make this a competitive, low-scoring game. I think it's definitely one of those games, and I also think with Nebraska coming in undefeated, that's going to really motivate this Golden Gopher team, and I already picked Minnesota to win this game. So yeah, I think this is where Nebraska finally slips up. They're going to lose their first, game of the season, and also it's on the road, so that's a very tough place to play. It's kind of tough to win back-to-back road games. We know that in the history of college football, but I think it is close. But I think Minnesota is going to beat Nebraska here. Again, thanks to their running game, I think they probably waste the clock down, and they pull off an upset here. So that's going to be Nebraska's first loss of the season, and that's going to put them at 6-1 on the year. After that, they come back at home to play Northwestern on October 25th. A Northwestern team that I'm kind of having a tough time figuring out how good this team is going to be. I mean, they do got a transfer quarterback coming in, which I think will be pretty solid for them. This is a pretty solid roster, but again, just so many question marks about this team. Maybe Northwestern kind of gives Nebraska a little bit of trouble in the first few minutes because maybe Nebraska is coming in a little bit beat up, especially after playing a very tough running attack team in Minnesota from last week, and that probably could that probably could just cost them here in this game, but still. Nebraska's playing at home. I do expect them to bounce back, especially after a tough loss to Minnesota. And I think Nebraska gets a much-needed bounce-back win. So I got them beating Northwestern. I'm going to say they win it by at least a couple of touchdowns. And I got this team improving to 7-1. After that, they play at home against USC on November 1st. I think this game is probably going to be a shootout. It really can go two different ways. USC is a team that we know that they're going to be really good on the offensive side of the football like they always are with Lincoln Riley calling plays. Defensively, they could probably take a big jump this year on defense. Last year, we saw the defense kind of make a little bit of a forward stride. Defensively, they could be a lot better, just like they were with, it's kind of like between LSU and USC. Those two teams kind of improved a little bit on defense, and they're going to just have to come down to their defense this year if they're going to have a chance to succeed. And yeah, I think USC will be a pretty decent team, but this is kind of a tough one to call. It's pretty much a coin flip. I think it really, like I said, it's a game that can really go either way. It could be a shootout. It could be a low-scoring defensive game. But I'm going to say that Nebraska playing at home, that's really the difference there. So home field advantage will be the difference. I'm going to say Nebraska gets the win, and I got this team improving to 8-1. So yeah, Nebraska probably has a chance to make the playoff by this time going into the final stretch in November. But things kind of get trickier here in the next two games. UCLA is next on the road, November 8th. UCLA is a very tough place to play. Look, UCLA is a team that doesn't have a lot of talent, but they do have some playmakers on their roster, and second-year head coach in Deshaun Foster, I think he's got something going for this UCLA football team. They're a team that could be a little bit better this year. They could be a sneaky good team, but not a contender in this conference, definitely. But Nebraska has to travel out west, and we have seen that kind of give teams some trouble, with the conference realignment. when that changed a lot from last year. Some of the teams in the, conferences of the ACC and then the Big Ten, they have to travel out west, and that really just definitely costs some teams here. So yeah, Nebraska definitely probably could have a pretty tough time in this one. And I also think whatever happened in the USC game from last week, either was a shootout or a low-scoring physical game. I think Nebraska is going to be a little bit, under, a little bit tired going into this game, and maybe also a little bit beat up. And plus, playing out west, I think that's really definitely an upset alert type game, and I think UCLA will realize that. So I think the Bruins actually pull off an upset here. So I think they give Nebraska their second loss of the season, so that's going to drop them to 8-2. After that, they get their second bye week before playing a tough test on the road at Penn State on November 22nd. Penn State going to be a veteran team, especially on the offensive side of the football. Drew Aller is back at quarterback. We saw Nebraska, though, compete with Ohio State last year in the month of November, I think it was. Can they do the same thing here to Penn State this year? Well, I don't think so. I think Penn State is going to be really good this year. I'm pretty high on this team to definitely make the college football playoff, and then also potentially be one of the favorites to win the Big Ten this year. So yeah, I kind of expect Nebraska to put up a little bit of a fight because they do get a bye week before playing this game, but still, I think Penn State's going to pull away in the second half. That's just how I see it going here. So I think the Nittany Lions do get the win here, and that's going to be back-to-back losses for the first time for Nebraska on this schedule, and that's going to put them at 8-3. And then the final game of the season is on a Friday against Iowa on November 28th. I talked about this Iowa team. I do like their starting lineup. I think their starting lineup will keep them, basically in the first half of some games, maybe also by the third quarter. But you just look at the depth on this team. There's not a ton of depth on this roster, and that just really has me concerned for this Iowa team a lot for 2025. And like I said, I don't think they're going to be a bad team. I can definitely see them doing a lot better than what I had them predicted for this year. But yeah, I think Nebraska, you look at them on paper, they're definitely the better team than Iowa. And Dylan Raiola is a quarterback that I do trust a lot more than the incoming quarterback for Iowa this year. So I think Nebraska will close out the year with a win over Iowa here on Friday. But you never know. Some of those weeknight games, we see some upsets do happen. But I think Nebraska will win. And I got this team finishing 9-3 in 2025. That seems like a pretty high prediction. But again, you look at this schedule. It sets up pretty well for them. They got a pretty easy non-conference schedule. Cincinnati will be a little bit tough, but I think they're definitely the better team. I got them at least getting a big win against Michigan at home there on September the 20th, but I can definitely see them still losing that game. And this team probably can go 8-4, but what if this team goes 10-2? They could probably be a top contender in the Big Ten this year. But as of right now, I think this is definitely a dark horse team in the Big Ten this year for 2025. And again, the way this schedule sets up, that's why I got them going 9-3 this year instead of like maybe 8-4 or 7-5. But I got this team going 9-3, so that's my prediction for Nebraska for 2025. Do you guys agree or disagree with this prediction? And give me your prediction for Nebraska down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.